Hello there. Welcome to another live update. I'm just giving it a couple of seconds. We're doing a bit of a experiment, if you want to call it that, at least a technical experiment, and I'm trying to connect Riverside, which is the platform I'm streaming from, into uh, a new platform, LinkedIn. We've been on YouTube and Facebook so far, and this is the first time, and hopefully it works. So just giving it a couple of seconds. It's telling me I've got a little wheel telling me it's going through. So if you're just tuning in, especially if you're from YouTube, because it tells me that's live at the moment, this is part of an ongoing series, a series of updates around the feature film that we're in development for, which is called Capo. So this is a way for people to get some insight onto what's happening day to day, week to week, and more importantly, just hear around the foundation that we've laid over the last around about a year and a half of putting this together. So far, it's looking like I'm not quite connected yet. So we're just giving it a couple more seconds. And I'm looking. Okay. I think we're getting there. Give it a couple more seconds. Okay, I seem to be live, which is good. Okay, so like I said, this is an ongoing series of live updates. So if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. But you also have an opportunity to look back at some of the videos we've made before to get a sense of where we've come to today. We've spoken a lot about the story behind the film. We've just started recently to talk about the commercial side of it. So things like audience, and just yesterday we spoke around the marketing strategy behind the film. And leading off from that, it's really important because I haven't really talked about it much yet, is to just talk about what makes a good film investor. So I'll talk about that in a general sense, but then also relate it to Capo in particular, just so people can get a better understanding of that. So when we talk about what it means to be a good film investor, there's really, at least at a high level, three key factors. And the first one, which is really critical, is just understanding the risk factor, but without having like a big fear factor around it. Just being upfront and honest around that there is a risk. Film investment, it's unlike other asset classes. It does carry a high amount of risk. So the first thing that makes a good film investor is having a high appetite for risk. It's just having that recognition that it is a challenging area to be investing in. There's a lot of factors out of our control. The fact that film itself is a creative vehicle, at the end of the day, putting aside all the things that we can do to strengthen the project, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and I've talked about on previous lives as well. But putting aside those things, there's a lot of things that are out of our factor, and one of those, the main areas, is the fact that it comes down to the what the audience wants, and it's you can do as much testing as you like until the film is made and is out there and the public can consume it. That's when you're really going to get your best feedback. So just recognizing that is a big factor. So keeping in mind that an investor has to have that high risk appetite, um, what are the benefits along the way that make it different to other asset classes out there? Because if you've got capital to invest and you want a sure thing, well, not a sure thing, but you want a safer way to invest your money. There's half a dozen other ways to do it. So then why would you bother with film? So for an investor, that's the thing they've really got to ask and be aware of, because there's a myriad of benefits that go into being a film investor, which you just don't get when you choose to invest in other avenues. So, for example, and this is something that I'm always really upfront with people who are considering investing into Capo, is being along for the journey. And what I mean by that is we want someone who is, in the trenches with us, as it were, and they're experiencing all the wins and also all the challenges, but the wins that come along the way. So, for example, we're at the, you know, but from a financing point of view, we're at the beginning of that journey in a lot of ways. So when we get to pre-production, and even before that, when we're considering cast, an investor gets to be a part of that journey with us. So they're, seeing the considerations we're making. They're seeing when those events occur, and then when we actually get to production, boy, is that going to be an exciting time. The production side of things, as stressful as it may be, is a very exciting time in the timeline of putting together a film. And I always think back to one of the short films we made a couple of years back, Dear Andy, and that was, in the scale of what we're doing now with the Capo, a relatively small film. And I remember the day that my folks came to visit the set, and they were just so impressed with just the amount of people that are like, in a small set, we were, in like an Airbnb that we're shooting for a like home scenes. And there was, probably about 20, 25 people all crammed into that room, and we were running around doing our various jobs. And my parents were just blown away by like just the amount that goes into, putting something together. And that's, in a day, we're talking like 3 minutes of film. So what I think, at least for investors when they're coming in, and this is a scale that's much bigger, the excitement of seeing what goes behind the scenes of a film. It's, one thing to watch documentaries or watch behind the scenes footage from your favorite films, but actually being there, experiencing it, is just a really rare opportunity, and something we're excited to offer to our investors, because that's really um, what makes it different from investing in other avenues. So that's, like a once in a lifetime opportunity to be a part of something that's really great and exciting. And we can talk more about, what happens after that, once the film's done, when we have our premiere, when we have our local premiere here in Perth, getting to see it on the big screen, and you bring your family along, and you're sitting there in a theater, and even the little things, seeing your name in the credits is just such an exciting experience, and like seeing your name put to that project. So that's what we're talking about when we're offering it to investors. Um, the second part that makes a good film investor is a respect for the creative process. And what I mean, this goes back to that risk factor, right? Because what I mean by that is an investor, once they're on board, they're putting a lot of trust in not just me, but all the creatives that are involved in, putting together and executing this film. And it's having that trust in the creativity and the talent that we're bringing into this project. And that's not to say that they're not going to be privy to the decisions that are being made, and being privy to how we're actually bringing this story to life. There's some people who might not want to know about that, but that's going to be available to them should they want to. But it's much like other areas where you're taking or putting trust in a professional. So, say you're getting surgery at the hospital, once you've decided and you've done your due diligence, and you've gone ahead and chosen a surgeon that you're going to have perform this operation, once they're doing it, you're not up there telling them what to do, and, saying where they should make their incision, and, all the various things that go into that. They trust in the surgeon. So it's much the same way with film. Once you've, decided to come on board, you're very much putting your faith and your trust in the creative team to execute on that vision. And it's a shared vision, mind you, but they're the ones executing on it. Um, the other part, which is important, is thinking long term. So um, the reality is that a film, from the point of when we're financing it to when it's completed, and more importantly when it's put on into theaters and onto streaming platforms, is actually starting to recover, and actually recover that investment and recover that revenue, that can be, roughly like a 1.5 to 2 year process for when that actually happens. So investors, again, it comes back to um, that factor of being like having a high risk appetite. That's why you're able to think long term. But even going beyond that, because this is something I talk about a lot with other people in the industry, and I remember speaking to a producer who was once at a film festival in a conference environment, and he was speaking to someone who had invested in film before, and he just wanted to, get some feedback. So he literally asked the question, what is it that makes you invest in film? And his answer is something that really stuck with me, and I, tell as many people as possible. And it's that film changes people's lives. And it sounds quite, grandiose, but when you actually think about it, it's true. It inspires people. It changes the way people think. I remember uh, Roger Ebert, the film critic, once described film as an empathy machine. So it allows people to step into the shoes of someone else and see the the world through their eyes. So I think that can't be understated, and it's something that um, you know it's a transformative experience that I believe other mediums out there, although they aim for it, can't achieve it to the same effect that film does. So they're the three main areas we look at when it comes to what makes a good film investor. So if this is something brand new to you, and if you're even watching this and you feel like that's a criteria that reaches you, you're more than welcome to reach out and we can talk more about it. But I'm going to wrap up the live just on that note. And if you are watching this for the first time, feel free to tune in. We do this very regularly, and we're going to be breaking down more of the elements of the Capo, as well as what's happening week to week. We've got some very exciting things coming up in the days and weeks to come. And if you're watching this and you know of someone who might be interested in learning more about the project, again, I'd recommend wherever you're watching this, tell that person to follow the page or subscribe, and they'll be able to see it just like you are. But on that note, thanks for tuning in. My name's Jeremy Mullally, and this is an ongoing live series around the Capo film project. Thanks very much.